Hello, welcome to South Today. I'm Sally Taylor. In tonight's programme, a vision for the future. Could trams be the solution to traffic congestion and pollution in and around Southampton?
More than 20% of tram users previously made those journeys by car. Trams are attractive to car drivers, unlike buses.
Empty fields but full barns. Farmers count the cost of bird flu restrictions as free-range status on this farm is threatened. Glasses for classes. A new look for teaching as the textbooks are thrown out.
The best way to do that is give them something interactive and something tangible they can touch, they can feel and they can see. It certainly beats them sitting there and looking at a PowerPoint slide at the beginning of every single lesson.
And I'm at the Dorset B&B that's just been named Best in the World. It's a tough job sometimes.
It's been more than half a century since the last tram ran in Southampton, but business leaders and politicians are now thinking about bringing them back. There are currently 8 tram and light railway networks operating in the UK, and with traffic congestion here set to increase by 50% over the next decade, an urgent solution is being sought. Currently, fewer than 1 in 10 people in the Solent region uses public transport to get to work. So could a new tram network linking Southampton, Eastleigh and Fareham really persuade us to ditch our cars? Tom Hepworth has been investigating.
Sabrina Buck drives 6 miles from Chandler's Ford to work in Southampton. To get there for 9, it can take between 40 minutes and an hour.
I've been travelling for about 10 years and it was a lot quieter than it is today. I've had to change my hours to go in earlier when I can.
Fewer than 1 in 10 people in the Solent region go to work on public transport. The local enterprise partnership thinks trams may be the answer.
These are very early days, but the plans would see trams run on or alongside existing railway tracks from Fareham through the new town of Wellbourne all the way over to Eastleigh and the airport, then on to a new station at St Mary's and a ferry interchange at the Royal Pier. It would then run along the street to the cruise terminal and on to Central Station, where it would rejoin the railway and head up to Romsey past a new park and ride by the M27. From there, the line would head east through Chandler's Ford to Eastleigh and a new park and ride site right on the M3. Another line would head eastwards out of the city, this time from the new St Mary's station, going through Netley, ending up at a park and ride site here in Sedgensworth. And finally, across Southampton Water, the old Waterside Railway line would be reopened as far as Marchwood, with a park and ride site there as well. Now, this all could be in place by 2040, but it's going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds.
Isn't this all pie in the sky, though?
I think the investment is more than millions. It's probably hundreds of millions of pounds. But this region has been significantly underinvested in by the government in the recent past. And we need to change that dynamic, which is why the Solent LEP took the initiative by developing this strategic transport investment plan.
Trams have been running for 25 years here in Manchester. 60 miles of track link the city centre with nearby towns. It's Britain's biggest and busiest light rail network.
This is a service to Altrincham. The next stop will be Piccadilly.
The trams here run on the street and existing railway tracks. When a new line's opened, house prices nearby go up, and there's a boost for businesses.
The opening of Metrolink in 1992, the first 2 lines, was the start of the big revival of Manchester city centre.
Southampton lost its tram network in 1949. Plans to reintroduce them over the years never got off the drawing board. Air pollution and increasing congestion on the roads are focusing minds, but a change in the political landscape may play its part too.
I think devolution will help, but it's not. It won't stop it necessarily coming forward. I think it will help. I think it will speed it up because the local impetus is very keen. We won't have to work necessarily through government ministers all the time.
If a light rail network were to be built, would people use it though?
More than 20% of the tram users previously made those journeys by car. Trams are attractive to car drivers, unlike buses.
If the tram was competitively priced and turned up on time and definitely ran, then it would be a much better alternative than driving.
We're a long way off seeing a tram network like this in Southampton, but the LEP and the City Council are keen to have 6 trams running every hour between Eastleigh and the city centre within the next few years. But finding the money and forging the political will to make that happen is not going to be easy. But they're both agreed that doing nothing is no longer an option.
Let's join Tom. He's in Southampton now. Tom, we heard in your report that this tram network could cost hundreds of millions of pounds. Where's that money going to come from?
Well, indeed, if it gets the go-ahead, Sally, it would relieve pressure on the Avenue, what's usually a very busy road indeed. But the money's not going to come from one big pot. Though central government's expected to provide the bulk of that funding through potentially the Transport Development Fund, the Local Growth Fund or the National Productivity Investment Fund. But there are other streams of finding the money as well. Should a deal for regional devolution get the go-ahead, then that would free up millions of pounds for local infrastructure projects as well. And developers who build housing along the route, they'd be expected to put their hands in their pockets and pay as well.
What sort of timescale are they talking about?
Well, the LEP says it wants to see phase 1, the Eastleigh to Southampton city centre route, operational by 2020. I think that's a little ambitious, to be honest. But what this feasibility study will do will be let us have a much clearer idea of the cost and give them the ammunition to build that business case for the funding.
Tom, thanks very much. And certainly the idea has sparked a lively conversation on the Saturday Facebook page, if you'd like to go there and have your say. The Civil Aviation Authority has accepted all 21 safety recommendations made following the Shoreham air crash. 11 men were killed when a Hawker Hunter jet crashed during a display at Shoreham Airport in August 2015. It struck the A27 dual carriageway. Our transport correspondent Paul Clifton is near to the scene of the crash this evening. Just tell us about these recommendations, Paul.
Sally, air accident investigators have made a series of technical recommendations following the events that happened just behind me in August 2015. 21 recommendations in all. Most relate to the way in which former military aircraft are assessed, inspected and prepared. Today, the Civil Aviation Authority, the industry's regulator, accepted the final 8 of those recommendations. However, we know that these changes would not have altered the events that took place here. Air accident investigators said a long time ago that the crash was not due to a mechanical failure of the aircraft. It happened as the pilot was making an aerobatic manoeuvre. He came out of a loop at a lower level than would be normal and over the road instead of within the display area. He'd not agreed that in advance with the airshow director. The local MP has welcomed the latest report.
All 21 of those recommendations, they are now going to accept. There's just an issue over timing of to when they can be brought in, but in principle they are now all being accepted, and I think that's good news and shows that there's been some good work done by both the AAIB and the Civil Aviation Authority to make sure there are going to be changes to air displays in the future to make them even safer.
And Paul, this isn't the end of the investigation by a long way, is it?
No, Sally, we're still waiting for the final report into the crash that will set out exactly what happened and why. We expected it last year, but it has been repeatedly delayed. Next month is now likely. The pilot of the Hunter, Andrew Hill, survived. The police are still considering whether to charge him with manslaughter. Only when that process has been completed can the inquest be held. It's quite likely that will not happen until next year, so the families involved won't get a final verdict until perhaps 3 years after the crash. Sally.
Paul, thanks very much.